Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends on what time you're listening. Welcome to The Solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. We're the New York City Prevention Resource Center. I'm Ronni.
And I'm Chevar.
Nothing changes there.
Absolutely not.
How you doing today, Chevar?
I'm okay. Life throws you curveballs. You don't duck from them, you catch them.
That's right. Sometimes you duck, but most of the time you catch them. Sometimes they even deflect off you.
Yeah. Just dealing with that. I'm hopeful for 2021 that we can finally push through this pandemic. I don't want it to rush through, but I want it to disappear.
We definitely need to get to the other side of this.
I want to be outside. I just want to do things, man. I want to be able to experience life again. Because like this part of life is not fun. Staying in the house, quarantining, staying away from people. I miss the social interaction of others.
I do too. I'm sorry, I've got a dog who's
it's
misbehaving as always.
It's all good. But no, definitely. That's the one thing, hopefully close to midsummer, end of the summer, I can just venture off and just sit outside, just sit in the park, sit somewhere, sit outside.
I want to hug people again. I miss
that. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I miss hanging with you. I miss we see each other every day, many times a day, but it's not the same as when we're in the office together. Or
absolutely,
together.
Absolutely not. Being with the person is different physically or face to face. Like getting their germ, but we can't get each other's germs now.
That's right.
But it's different, man. Like going out to eat, eating outside, talking to your neighbors, walking past your neighbors, seeing their faces without the faces being covered.
Yeah. The other day, one of my neighbors, I have a woman, Rita, next door, and Rita has trouble with movement, and she was trying to carry her recycling out, and I thought, this woman is in agony. So I said, you need help? She said, that'd be great. I said, okay, put it down and step back. And she looked at me, I said, well, we got to be socially distant. She said, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's a good thing that you helped out, but also it's like, I got to help you, but you got to help me too by moving away.
Right. Put it down and step back. It sounds so serious.
Yeah, step away from the package. Step away from the package.
But we laughed about it, and it was just nice to have that interaction with her. I haven't seen her since this whole thing began.
Wow.
Except for maybe the wave in the car, we haven't talked.
And it's interesting when I do go out, which is very, very little. I don't go out. When I do go out and I walk past people and they go, Chevar, I'm like, they have masks on. I'm like, who are you? Like, I don't, dude.
I know.
I'm like, oh, it's you. I was like, I'm being very honest. Like, I'm in my own. When I'm walking, if I don't see your face, I'm not looking in everyone's face. I'm not looking to your eyes, and I'm pretty sure you can tell by someone's eyes or nose, whatever, the other part of their body or face you can tell. But I like when I'm in my mood, and I'm walking I'm just trying to get back home. It's like, Chevar. I'm like, oh, I had to sit there and pull. I was like, you don't recognize me now with a mask on.
It's weird. People recognize me, but I think it's my hair. When I'll be in the middle of, like BJ's, and someone will say, hi, Ronni, how are you? I'm like, who the hell is that? Oh, I was in the training you did the other day online. I'm like, okay. And we see people in little boxes, but I do look forward to seeing people again. But I'm really psyched that we've been able to really keep it real and really be inventive. This podcast, the meetings we hold, NYC POP, our Partners of Prevention group, working together. There's been such a cohesiveness about the work during this whole time. It's like the prevention field has really rallied and found ways to work together.
Absolutely.
And we need prevention now more than ever.
Yeah, prevention. Yeah, most definitely. People are struggling, man, and people are giving up, and they're saying, screw it, let me just go outside, let me do things I probably wouldn't do. People are like ruining, I don't want to say ruining their lives, like making difficult decisions in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That may cause harm to them in you know, again, I say it over and over, 2 years from now, the mental health services are going to be booming. I'm telling you, keep saying it.
You're right.
It's going to be a whole, so whoever is listening to this in the government, put some money in mental health services, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, I've been looking at some of the funding that's being proposed, and it's definitely in there. And there's money for prevention in the bill that was just passed. And, I'm glad those things are being considered and taken seriously, because we're seeing, use go up a lot, especially with young adults and adults, and overdoses are skyrocketing.
I would hope also it's intentional on who they're looking for. And I mean that in the sense of representation. Whether you're helping with substance misuse or even mental health, like having someone who, whether they're the same skin color, same background, same community, have the same beliefs is healthy. Because again, I've gone to meetings, for coalition meetings, and I hear people, you've been to meetings also, and you hear people talk, it's like, who are you here for? Are you here for yourself? Are you here for yourself? Or you here for your community?
Yeah, good point. Very good point.
And that's and then when you look at it and who's being harmed, and sometimes the representation isn't always there, because it becomes a quality of life issue opposed to what's the word I'm looking for? A health issue. This is all health issues. These are all health issues. When we're talking about substance misuse, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or even vaping, to an extent, because there's different levels of how vaping is, vaping does help people, it does, to kick that habit. But then it's the other side where people don't know what they're putting in their bodies.
And young people getting addicted.
Yes.
Because the restrictions are not being enforced. And, we need to be really serious about enforcing those with people who are not of age to make those decisions on their own. Absolutely.
Agree with you 100%.
Well, it looks like we have a guest.
Always when I'm talking.
Of course. I think that's only happened once. I'm gonna let him in.
Let's do it.
So in a minute, we will have somebody appear on the screen. Yes, I see John entering. This is exciting. It's always fun when we have somebody come in.
Hi.
Hey, John.
How are you today?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, good.
Enjoying life.
Enjoying the sunny day. We're so glad you could join us today.
Of course.
We were just, shooting the breeze and talking a little bit about how the pandemic has affected people. But before we get to that, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our listeners and our viewers who you are and what you do?
Yeah. My name is John Cho. I use he and they pronouns, and I'm the Youth Substance Use Prevention Coordinator at the LGBT Community Center.
Yeah, and that's in the Chelsea area, I guess we could call it. Is it called Chelsea, or is it still the village over there?
I think it's both.
Yeah. I know, I always love going to visit. We're talking about all the places we miss going, and that's one place I miss. I get there several times a year at least.
Yeah.
And we've had our prevention conference there for years.
Right.
So definitely miss that. But, we were just talking about hopefully things will get back to where we can hug each other again and hang out together. And
absolutely,
just how the prevention community has really come together to do vital work during this time. And why don't you tell us about the center and the programs you have and, beyond.
Definitely, thank you. And I also do miss the center, and I haven't been in the building maybe once since the pandemic has started, so I do miss the physical space as well. But about the center, as you know, Ronnie, but the center has existed from 1983, and we have served the community since then in the New York State area. In addition to kind of like the prevention work that I do, we provide advocacy, health and wellness programs, arts and cultural events, and kind of like the programming that people are really familiar in the prevention work, recovery, family, and youth support services in general. And then the things that I do are kind of like closed prevention groups like Life Skills Towards No Drug Abuse, Too Good for Drugs and Violence, prevention counseling, sport. I'm missing a couple. I'm probably missing a couple of things, but what I'm really proud about the center is kind of its ability to be not in silos. So we have a robust recovery youth and adult recovery program. We have a clubhouse, and we have prevention services. So, and in addition to those things, I'm also interwoven and work with people who kind of do internships that kind of focus on career readiness, social justice, inclusive sex, education, peer coaching, and leadership facilitation, as well as working with people like patient navigators who help young people with insurance. And we have robust partnerships, kind of like with the PRC, but also kind of some partnerships I would like to highlight that have been helpful in the pandemic are Queens Community House, Harvey Milk High School, the Bridge program at Judson Healthcare Center, who just launched recently kind of a Pride program, but they've been instrumental in kind of helping us navigate this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful space. I mean, I know it was renovated several years ago, and but there are some historical rooms in there. You know, what's some of the history of the center that you could share with us?
Yeah, kind of one thing that I like to kind of like reference is the show Pose, because it kind of looks at the historical events that have been happening in the 80s during the AIDS epidemic. And they kind of like featured the center, although it's not that they didn't film at the center, so I always find it funny. But ACT UP is one of the big things where they've met in those rooms and organized in those rooms. And we try to hold really true to kind of our roots around organizing and advocacy for our community.
Yeah, there's such a great energy when you walk in the door there. And I always enjoy my time there. I remember the first time I entered the building, there was a health fair, and you guys were in the middle of renovations. So, and we were in, I guess it was kind of like a gym or a community room. I'm not sure what it was. It didn't look anything like it looks today. That was in 2014.
Yeah, that's when I started, and I'm actually hitting my 7 years at the center. So next week will be my anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
That's so very cool. Well, yeah, you've got so many programs there. How have you seen the work change during the pandemic? Like what have you been offering to people, and just tell us.
Definitely. I think one big thing is, and Ronni, I think you know this very well, we talk about kind of like in the trainings that we've done together about the importance of physical space for our community. And with the pandemic, that has shifted, right? And because physical space within our community is so important, because there historically haven't been a lot of places for LGBTQ plus people to convene and to kind of be themselves. In that absence, there are a lot of issues that come up that we're trying to navigate. And we still don't have complete answers, because things like young people might not be out at home. And so it might not be safe for them to be in a Zoom environment or to be in the places that they're in. And I think what's happening is kind of like divisions around privilege and access. So not everyone has internet, not everyone has a smartphone or a computer to access Zoom services, since we're not physical. But in terms of kind of like how the pandemic has impacted our work, as you know, that the center building is closed until further notice, but we're very much here and present in a virtual space to kind of connect to our community. And we're really working really hard to kind of connect them to remote services and resources that we've been formulating and thinking about and getting a lot of feedback from our community, but also to kind of bring back that support and that warmth, hopefully in a virtual space. And it has been really hard because I think as we're learning more about the pandemic, we're learning a lot more about the needs and kind of like, as this is chronically happening, this is not just kind of like an episode or an event that's happening, but it's happening in vivo. And kind of like also recognizing that although I'm a staff member of the center, I'm also a community member. So what does that mean as when we have our professional life, but it's also intermixing with our personal life and kind of just like our private life. It's all happening together.
John, can you talk a little bit more about that virtual space? What does that look like? I know, like you said, you're right. Not everyone has technology. We do understand that. But for those of us, or for those whomever's listening who do have technology, what does that look like? Is it like you walk into a Zoom space and there's a greeter and then there's all these different rooms you can go? Like, what does that look like for someone who needs some type of support?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. One thing I want to clarify for young people is they thought we were just closed. So because we're very much a physical space, people thought when we just went virtual, a lot of people, we try to notify many people as we could, but young people just kind of automatically was like, oh, the physical space is gone. So you guys aren't operating, but we are very much operating most of our services. And kind of what our services look like is that our engagement specialist, Ronni, has been really helpful. I think you might have met Ronni, but they're in the lobby most of the time and they greet young people. And so Ronni does that in a virtual way where we kind of signal to young people, these are the groups that we're having. We have a PDF calendar of all our Zoom links. So to ensure privacy, we have two types of calendars. One we send out to generally everyone, indicating the different types of programs that we have that are drop-in. And for internships, we kind of internally share that with young people within our program. So we're able to kind of be creative with our electronic medical record system to kind of think about how we can connect to young people. So with our active members, we've been able to have a mailing list to send them our updates with the calendar, our updates with things. And we're also trying to be more robust in social media. That's still in the works, but we're trying our best to kind of connect in ways that we haven't traditionally before. And we still operate very much as if like a after school program. So from 3 to about 7 or 7:30, we have programming that normally has run kind of like in a physical setting, but it's just all on Zoom groups. And we don't have passwords, so people that are in our program can easily access those things. That's
great. I mean, and you're offering a lot of services that you always offered. So
yes.
Yeah, I think we've all had to be pretty creative. You know, I'm in 12-step. I've shared that a lot here, and it's been incredible to see how robust the 12-step community has been in the support. And in a lot of cases, people can go to more meetings or be in more activities because they're kind of, I don't want to say a captive audience, but you know, we're you know, in one space, and we don't have the commute between times. Like one of the things we've noticed is we're constantly in meetings because
Right.
we don't have to get on the train and go somewhere. But it sounds like you're saying a lot of that. So would you say that your community has really embraced this?
I think it's a bit of both. Even if they don't embrace it, it's kind of like accepting realities as they are. And so young people are saying like, wow, I really miss the physical space of the center. When are you reopening? We don't know yet, to be really honest with them and transparent about that. But I think a lot of it has been, and I talk a lot about this and as a theme in my prevention counseling clients around, there are things that have served you really well in terms of what has been coping strategies or things how you adjust to kind of big life things, right? And the things that you might have entered this pandemic with no longer serve you in the way that you want it to. And so how do you adjust to that? How do you adjust to the things that we can't have a tangible way to like make the pandemic go away? So how do you adjust to this new reality that we're living in?
Now, I had a question, and I don't mean to go backwards. You talked about internships. What does an internship look like at the center, virtually or in person? What does that look like for a young person who wants to learn more, wants to do more, wants to participate?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of our internship programming is high school based. So a lot of young people, we have a couple ones that are 18 plus, so not high school. And so if they're interested in things like career readiness, we have an internship called Ready, where Cheyenne, shout out to Cheyenne who runs that program, but has been really tirelessly working to kind of look for placement sites that kind of will accept interns during this time, because like everyone else, they had to make adjustments to kind of what was going on, and a lot of places were no longer accepting interns. And so we had to be really creative on kind of how and what that kind of work would look like. And Cheyenne has really crafted creative solutions to do that. And so a lot of it is kind of like shifting to focus around communication and kind of like, because we're no longer in a physical space around what can we do in terms of connecting to young people in that way. But also, I think we are a little bit different because we're not a school. And so a lot of schools are mandating, like you have to show your face on camera, you have to like participate, and there's that expectation. Of course, we want our interns to work and be productive, but also we want to be really mindful of their emotional and mental health right now. And I don't think that's really clearly stated in kind of the areas and spheres that they're living in. And so we want to be really mindful of what our young people are going through. There's other internships that I talked about. We have a social justice internship. One of our cycles just ended, and it was about Black Lives Matter. It was also about the foster care system. And so our young people were able to really, they do a service learning project and they present back to the community. They get people within their lives to kind of also be participants in the change that they want to see. And so our Aurora interns have really worked really hard on kind of the service learning projects that they were doing to better inform our community. So one of our models is like to peer-to-peer learning, and because sometimes young people don't want to listen to adults like us, or sometimes it's just harder to connect with them. And when they see young people in leadership and in the things that they're doing, they're like, wow, that could be me. And that inspires more leaders and more change. Some of the other internships that we have are called YAS. So it's based on a POL model, but it's Youth Advocates for Safer Sex. So I never thought YAS would be an acronym for something so cool, but it's providing and empowering young people to kind of learn about inclusive sex education. And then we have peer coaching, where we have young people help us formulate the feedback and the facilitation to kind of talk about substance use prevention and harm reduction in a way that maybe I can reach young people in that way. And then we have peer education, which is like a long historical kind of tradition where community discussion is one of our groups that has been running over maybe as long as I've been alive, maybe like 25 to 30 years. But we kind of translated that historical group and its roots to kind of talking about how do we talk about LGBT issues that are really pertinent to young people in a way that's focused on leadership and community. And if people want to learn more, you can definitely join our program, and intake is required. You can talk to me.
But how would they get in touch with you? What would?
Yeah, you can email me definitely at jacho@gaycenter.org. You can also email our youth email, youth@gaycenter.org. Or you can go to our website and kind of look at how to connect with us, if that's
And you're pretty easy to find. I mean, you put in the center, you put in the gay center. I mean, it comes up in a lot of different ways. And what a great resource. So hopefully, you know, somebody listening who needs that resource would feel inclined to reach out. But you were talking, I was thinking of all the wonderful things you're doing, especially during the pandemic and keeping people afloat. But this must be a particularly hard time for, you know, people who are in the queer community, especially being home with their parents and having to deal with restrictions perhaps that or hide who they are. So, I mean, what are some of the pitfalls right now, or what are some of the things that young people who are, you know, LGBTQ plus are experiencing that that might be something to look out for or be there to support them with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Ronni. I think a lot of it is kind of around safety and kind of like safety of identity, safety of when I talk about the physicality of space, one reason is that that space holds a lot of memories, a lot of ways for people to express themselves in a way that maybe that they can't do in their home environment or at school or at other areas in their life. And so what we're seeing is a constriction of maybe people have to go back into the closet, or they have to like reevaluate what their expression of their identity looks like. And so that's a really big factor, but also the pandemic. And as you know, our identities are intersectional. And so the pandemic has caused a lot of job loss, a lot of job reduction, and or young people are facing illegal evictions or kind of things where people are facing homelessness, or if you are in the homeless shelter system, navigating through where the pandemic has disrupted a lot of the little stability that people were given by being in a homeless shelter, and they had to keep relocating to hotels or other places for them to sleep. So there has been a lot of disruption. Or young people have lost their insurance because they lost their job, or there's food insecurity, and that's causing a lot of conflict at home. And so there's a lot of unique and intersecting issues that are coming up where young people are asking for guidance and support around those things. And some of those things we are still trying to figure out answers for, but definitely those are all things that young people are saying to us.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking, you know, and so often when we're looking at prevention, we talk about this a lot, that, you know, there's a lot of layers to prevention. It isn't just about messaging or, you know, making the decision not to use it. If we don't help people resolve the issues that lead them to drugs, it's very hard to make a dent. And very often, you know, we see, like, we'll see one substance use go down. So, you know, people are using less alcohol, but then we see another substance go up. So it's kind of this pendulum that we're constantly trying to balance. And, you know, we do need to get to those core issues like poverty and hunger and housing and acceptance. There are just so many issues that we often don't see approached in this field. And it sounds like the center is really trying to touch on all those areas. And I think that's what makes your work so effective.
Thank you. Yes, we're trying our best, and it takes a village, really. It takes a community. And so as important as the center is, we also acknowledge that we need support from other systems, other community providers, other people that make our work so important and vibrant, because it's really important to also understand that without our community members, we wouldn't exist. And so it's important for us to also connect in ways that we haven't before. And so for that, I'm really thankful.
I can understand. Well, Chevar, should we ask John the question we ask everybody?
Absolutely.
Why don't you ask? We have a couple of fun questions
do it.
we'd like to include.
John, growing up as a youngster, what did you want to be when you got older?
I think my
why? Go for it.
biggest thing was, I think I landed in kind of like the field that kind of translates organically as I learned more about prevention, but I really wanted to be a teacher. I just had a really big fascination of like the people that kind of touched me in that way. And I was like, oh, wow, like education is really important, but I didn't know how to express that tangibly. I just knew that like my teachers were always there and I needed that level of support. And I was like, huh, I don't know what else I'm good at age 5 to 8, but I kind of want to be there for people.
So compassionate and so empathetic. When I was that age, I wanted to be a race car driver.
And I wanted to be a famous musician and a veterinarian. So instead I play guitar for fun, have dogs, and do something else. But we always like to ask that because we get so much insight into people when we do, and it's fun. Chevar looked like he was going to say something.
No. I was going to say also I wanted to be a firefighter, and I do neither one of them. I live in New York City. I don't drive cars, and I don't like fire. So,
well, as we finish, you know, we wrap up our talk here. Anything parting messages you want to put out there? And again, could you repeat how to get in touch with you and with the center? So if anybody listening feels they'd like to reach out, they'll have the information.
Yeah, I think my parting message is that we're open. We're here for everyone. And I think one also big misconception is that we don't have allies within our community spaces. And so allies are really important to the work that we do. And that if you have any young people that are interested in kind of gaining that support or kind of gaining that friendship and community to decrease that social isolation, definitely please email me at jcho@gaycenter to set up an intake, or you can contact youth@gaycenter.org.
Okay, a lot of ways to get in touch with you, and you know, I hope that people will reach out, because I know that we're all going through a lot now, but especially communities that don't have the support and the acceptance and the safety that so many of us do. You know, so I do hope that people who hear this will reach out. But we're so glad you could join us today, and I miss you, John. I wish we get to see each other through the year. This has been a tough year.
Yes, definitely. I'm so grateful to you, Ronnie. I'm still grieving over that we weren't able to go to Nashville this past year.
I know.
And it was wonderful to really meet you, Chevar.
Likewise.
Yeah, have you two met in person before?
We have at the DOHMH training. We have.
That's right. Yeah, our paths cross a lot. But thank you so much for being our guest today, and We unfortunately it went too fast. We're going to have to say goodbye, but we'll stick around and we'll finish out the show. But thanks so much for coming, John.
Thank you so much.
And send my love to Peter and everybody.
Wow.
All right. We'll see you soon. Take care. Wow.
That was good. It was some good information. I'm glad that the center is still open in some capacity, whether although it's virtual now. But yeah, youth need help. No matter, it doesn't matter what your background is. Everyone needs the support.
Yeah, and so often, we forget about, young people who are at home now and they can't be who they discovered themselves to be. They have to go back into hiding, and I can only imagine the effect it's having on them.
Yeah, when John mentioned it, I didn't even think of that. You have to go back into the closet, so to speak. He did air quotes. For those of you guys who are listening to this, for those of you guys who see, you saw the air quotes. It's the fact that you can't be yourself. And I've always said this, people should be allowed to be humans. You should be allowed to be who you are.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have to hide it, you should just be human.
Yeah, and there's something sometimes that we don't think about. That young people who are home are definitely having to behave in a different way, or like you said, they can't be themselves. And I think that's happening on many levels with many young people, not just the LGBTQ community, but just a lot of communities in general. The stay at home life has had an effect on a lot of people. And like you said, I think we're going to be waiting 2 years. I'd say, from here on in, we're going to see the mental health field really explode because people need that help.
Absolutely.
Well, it was good to see John. I'm used to seeing him. He and I have done trainings together a lot over the years. And when he was talking about Nashville, he was talking about CATCA. Yep. That was the mid-year conference. We were all supposed to be in Nashville this year. Mm-hmm. I was so excited. I was telling all my friends in Nashville, because I lived in Nashville for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I was telling them, I'm coming to Nashville this year. And we were all getting ready to see each other. And, well, we know it happened. Mm-hmm. So hopefully next year we get to go to wherever CATCA is.
Hopefully. Yeah, we'll see. Still up in the air. But like I said earlier, I'm hopeful for 2021. Looking for positivity, great energy, great people. That's where my mind is, and I hope everyone else is in the same plane. I know it's tough out there. I know sometimes you lose faith, but you have to believe in something. If it's yourself or someone else or a higher power, believe in something.
Oh, so important. Yeah, I feel hopeful. I do. There are days when I definitely feel myself, being pulled down a little bit. But we get through this. We're very resilient, and that resilience, I think, can get us through anything. I've just seen the incredible. Somebody was asking me the other day, how's your job going? I said, well, actually, it's been thriving. It's been great. We've been really creative this year, and I'm just so excited about all the incredible things we've done.
I had the same question. So when I said the same thing, I got the same exact question. I'm like, it's been pretty cool. The work still gets done. The only thing is we mentioned this earlier, and John also mentioned this, is the social interaction. That's the one part I miss.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, I miss, talking, hugging, eating, this engaging. I mean, we talk over Zoom or WebEx, whatever the platform is, but this different, because like once the Zoom call ends, the conversation ends. Like we've been at meetings or wherever where the conversation continues after the meeting. Mm-hmm. So now it's like when someone hit the host hits end on Zoom, it's over.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, there were meetings and trainings where we had to finally say, hey, people, you got to go home.
Yeah.
Because people love to linger and talk. And we are losing some of that.
Yeah.
That interaction. Well, you just made me more mindful of it. I think we got to just, keep that room. Well, a few times I have said that I've got to go, but you want to leave the room open. Right. But yeah, we lose a lot of that too. It's just, I think it's important to do what we have to do, but also to stop and think about what we're losing and not to lose it when we're back in person.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring up, that's a fear I have also, that this current normal is becoming a habit. that when we do get back together, people are going to have this new habit of just disappearing, like a Zoom meeting just ended, and they just disappear. You know.
And I doubt if we're going to be able to serve those great lunches anymore.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's amazing because last year, it was March of last year, and we actually had a training, I think, on March 11th or something.
Right, we did,
and we served food, and I was kind of getting a little weird about it then, and we all said, this is probably the last one we're going to do for a while, like 6 months.
Yeah, it was.
And here we are 10 months later.
Yeah, it's almost a year, which blows my mind.
Yeah,
almost a year. Like a year went by that fast.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know, it blows my mind too, but we're here, we're making it work, and we're finding things to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
You know, 2021 has gotten off and started with a bang. I'm saying to people, happier new year, because you know, 2020 kind of continued. People were saying, well, it's December 32nd and December 33rd and December.
Yep. Yep.
But, you know, hopefully, and the events of the last couple of weeks have been historical, I'll put it that way, but very frightening, and have really shaken a lot of us up.
Yep.
And hopefully we're going to start to see some changes that can get us back on a path where everybody can thrive. I mean, that's my hope, that, you know, it's all about making sure everybody gets the things that will help them have a better life. It's not about everybody getting the same. It's about giving everybody what they need.
This is true. This is true. I agree with you 1,000%. And that's not a real number, but whatever. I'm above 100% on agreement with you. But right, this is a cool episode. You know, I really appreciate listening to John. Like I listen to the guests. You know, and I have my questions. But it was cool, you know, just to hear what they have to offer. And again, like John said, the center is open.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this and you want to reach out, it's an incredibly non-judgmental place. Just reaching out and talking to somebody will, you know, let you hear what they have to offer, and then you can decide if it's what you want. And parents as well, if you have a child at home and you're concerned about them, or you're not able to understand where they're at, reach out. There are services there for you as well. But I think we're at that time again where we have to close, but I'm really glad that we got to start off the new year, and I'm hearing different sounds, which is okay. But I'm really glad that we got to start off the new year with a podcast. You know, we took a little break. We needed it. We were both really exhausted, but it's really good to be back, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of the solution in 2021, because as we know, nothing changes if we change nothing. Looking forward to some positive changes.
Absolutely. Great listening, everyone.
Have a good week.